Hey guys, it's Will, and it's been a little bit of a tough week. One of our teammates at our company fractured his hand and he's been sick. I've been sick a couple of days, so he can't type or do any of our development on our new software. And sometimes I feel sick just because I'm not showing up and serving you the way that I know that I should. And we're pushing hard to get that predictive analytics platform out. And still, it's not out, but I'm here. Hey, Rigetti just hit a new level today. And a lot of people aren't talking about this. So, who doesn't want a little bit of Rigetti spaghetti on a Friday afternoon? Let's jump into it. So, Rigetti stock, which, by the way, I'm going to show you guys what levels I'm watching, but I'm also going to kind of show you guys this setup here and what matters in the quantum market as of right now and how we would approach this, even if, it's a trade, but with long-term thinking. Any trade, and we talk about it time and time again, it's like, even though we're doing trades maybe on a couple day basis or a couple months or weeks, the reality is it's all going to be based on the intrinsic value, the long-term value of a company. So the reason I like to trade quantum is because while maybe the market caps could be higher than their current revenues, and the one chink in their armor is their financials. And we were just looking at IonQ a little while back, and they were starting to work with GPU clusters and integrating their quantum computers with NVIDIA. And even Jensen kind of changing the tune and being like, yeah, there's some potential for us to work with these quantum computing companies and founding Q2Q when it was just back in January when the same CEO had announced that quantum computings were 15, 30 years away. So it sold off from $21 Rigetti down to $5 in a matter of days. Now, right during this point, we actually went to the events where he made that announcement. I got to talk with the companies that were there, the quantum companies, talk with IBM, Microsoft, IonQ, Quantinium, about how they're using quantum computers right now. And their stance was that we're using them right now. And we're seeing value being shown up in businesses and research right now. So then, with uncertainty in the markets and things like that, they've consolidated from left to right since that sell off. Now we start to see them push up, and this is where it gets interesting. Like I said, there's a key level at which they are. We know the quantum computing market is set to grow more as AI demands more energy or more computing power, and quantum computers have the potential to offer that faster computing and more processing for less energy spent. So that's why there's a lot of focus on Rigetti, on IonQ, and on QBTS or even LAES in anticipation of quantum computers filling that need for revolutionizing some of that computation that's needed for AI and more computationally complex problems that arise as we advance as a human civilization. That's pretty big prediction there, but hey, that's what it is. And you got this movement of this 200-day support. The 200-day moving average is always an interesting one, right? We follow it. When it's bearish, it's acting as resistance, this green line. And when it's bullish, it's acting as a support. Now, it's been finding support back here since May. This previous resistance that is acting as a support at $10 a share. Now, we saw them sell down 5%, but that's okay. The whole market sold off today because of the Israel and Iran war, where Iran just struck Israel with some missiles. And there was a plane crash in India. So there's a lot of things kind of pushing on the market today that don't look so hot. Outside of that, you have that support at $10 essentially, but you also have that 200-day moving average sweeping in. If the market can hold some of its momentum, then that would be a really good indication that this trend can continue. And I accidentally drew with the wrong line. But when it comes to our map analysis, we look at the market, we look at the analysis, which is the chart, the news, and the financials, and then we're going to end with the profit plan. And to be honest, this chart here in the analysis stage, it looks fairly good, but it's at a critical moment. We're saying, can it hold this level? Otherwise, we're going to see a true kind of break in pattern, which we've seen happen before, where we start to see it get back into trend and then sell back off. So got to watch those levels closely. A couple things that go into Rigetti stock is the financials, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But when it comes to the chart, we're looking at this swing here, holding below the EMA. There's still a potential for it to sell below and continue down. We'd like to see this blue line here to act as a support. If you look really closely, this blue line here, it acts as a resistance when it's bearish, and it acts as a support when it's bullish. Kind of see that here. So bearish, it's acting as a resistance right there, and bullish, we're saying, oh, maybe it's starting to find this groove here and continue this direction. Now, if that's the case and we get to see that move take place, talking about a 15 to 30% swing up into that $14 or $15 price point. But again, if it breaks this level at around 11, there's that $10 support, but things not looking super hot for Rigetti if it can't hold that level. So we got to watch the technicals there. If it is a 30% swing, or we start to see even, let's say at market open, something like this, where we get, the smaller trend, you could see this previous kind of rising support here, support, and then acting as resistance then. So maybe that's that next level there at about $12.50 to $13. If that 10% margin that it can reach there takes place, then RGTX would have the same movement here, but that 10%, which it kind of looks a little strange here, would actually be a 20% margin on RGTX. So we're going to be watching the 2X as well. You can see that 2X pattern on RGTX, because RGTX goes up 2% every time Rigetti goes up 1%. Now there's more risk involved, and quantum is already volatile as we know it, but these funds are definitely something that can make a difference for investing. Now when it comes to Rigetti's recent financials and what they've reported, we're still waiting on their next financials. But when you look at the holders, we know that there is a tremendous amount of institutional interest. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America. You have all of these, Citadel, you got the Bank of New York, and basically every big institution has more increased positions than decreased positions, which indicates a bullish momentum for the institutional interest, which means that they have institutional attracting value. Not only that, but outside of that, which you do have to look at increased, like we got some increased versus the decreased, things are looking better. When it comes to the financials, though, this is where things start to kind of look a little different on the picture of what's really there. You could see some of the news recently with this change in how Jensen is talking about quantum. He's become a little bit more bullish. Rigetti just completed a $350 million at-market equity offering, and there is this interesting net income where they had positive in their last quarter. If you look at the annual, though, the net income's at an all-time negative. Part of that is investing in infrastructure, investing in research, but the balance sheet, it tells a little bit of a different story. You could look in this last quarter, the total assets are at 270 million, while the total liabilities have shrunk to 62 million. What does that tell you? Well, it means they have less debts and they're increasing their assets. They're increasing their cash. So the year-over-year growth is about 103% on their short-term investments, and their total assets are up 66%. So I actually really like the positioning with Rigetti. When we were talking about them back in December, we saw a much greater net income. I mean, huge, 152 million. But the reality is that even though they had that, their total liabilities were high as well. And then when they actually came out with their numbers in quarter one of 2025, that's when things started to change, because their total liabilities shrunk by more than half, which means while they have that runway of the total assets, they still pay down the debt. So that's good news for Rigetti. Now, outside of that, a couple things to consider. The different computationally complex parts of quantum is that you have this system to essentially run very, very uh, intricate intricate systems that have these mixing chambers and the amplifiers and getting down to the QPU. And one thing we talked about was how that QPU seemed to perfectly fit with Microsoft's Majorana chip. Now, how accurate could that be? Well, when it comes down to this outlook, you got partnerships with Microsoft, distribution channels with Microsoft. If we go to Microsoft, let's see, Microsoft, and you go to their Azure platform, they have Rigetti listed here as one of the quantum computers that's publicly available QPUs that are available through Microsoft's Azure Quantum. So that means that they're starting, its pricing is free. You can actually use the quantum computers. You can get through and actually see what it's like to use IonQ, Pascal, you got Quantinium, and they're there on the site. Now, when it comes to this quantum Microsoft partnership with Rigetti, I think that that's a big thing to watch. Now, outside of that, when we look at their recent announcements, Rigetti's just been a little bit quiet. When you go to their investors profile, you go to their news, with the exception of this recent $350 million at-market equity offering, which means they're getting some more money in for their cash, they will have approximately $575 million in cash. That gives them more runway, more proceeds that enter them into strategic collaborations or even acquisitions, which is interesting because if they're going to have some acquisitions, maybe they're buying some software companies or things like that to integrate the quantum computers with GPUs. Now we know that IonQ just recently announced yesterday that they're developing in applications with AWS and NVIDIA for drug discovery and actually working their QPUs in tandem with GPUs. So that's what we're looking for. Rigetti, we want to see something like that come out. I think that would be some really good news. And when it comes to Rigetti's movements in the markets, what we want to see is that news, this product offering, not just be a financials. We want to see more breakthroughs from a technological perspective. And that's what we'll be watching closely. But overall, their balance sheet most likely will look a little bit better in their next quarter earnings. So long-term investors definitely are happy with this recent pullback. Short-term investors, it's getting a little shaky. Volatility is definitely expected, and breaking below this $11.50 range definitely is something we want to watch because there's strong support there right at around $10 a share or just above $10 a share at about a $10.80 price point. And if we're going to see Rigetti continue this direction here, we're most likely going to see it get up into these $15 to $16 ranges, which, as we pointed out, it's about a 60% increase on Rigetti, about a 100+% increase over on RGTX. Now, tremendous risk, which means that you have to have proper risk management, and that's what the name of the game is when doing the shorter term and the nearer term investing that we do focus on. And I trade every day live in our live sessions. So if you guys want to join us, you see my entries and my exits, as well as watch me trade live. We go live every day, Monday through Friday. If you want to surround yourself with other like-minded investors and traders, then I would encourage you guys to simply take a look at the second link in the description. For Stockmate, you also get this free t-shirt that I recently am wearing here. I got released. And we also have our 20K YouTube subscriber special for lifetime access to Stockmate. So you get 70+ lessons on stocks, even crypto, and some options. But primarily, we focus on quantum computing, AI, and space companies, and the greater tech market. So if that sounds like something that makes sense for you and you like those markets, then I would encourage you to simply take a look at the second link in the description. Now, guys, we're growing fast. We got some new content coming out for you. Comment down below your thoughts on Rigetti as well. I would love to know what you guys think. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.